To things that are in Positive Coaching Alliance, setting effort goals instead of outcome goals. An effort goal is something that an athlete can control. An outcome goal is something that they can't. So you say, go score 4 goals. That's an outcome goal. Not necessarily possible. You could be coming up against the wall of defense that you had no idea. An effort goal would look more like you need to move your feet when you're skating. They can do that. That's something that they can have control over. So you set a goal that is something they can do and not necessarily tied to something that's an outcome. The targeted symbolic reward, this is what I was talking about with the queen bees. You reward what you want and you make sure that it's heard over and over and over again so that that becomes what the entire team is working to get done. And then this one, filling the emotional tanks. This one's huge, and Kristen, I think, mentioned it yesterday too. The ratio, and these positive psychologists have found that the ratio for, if you hear a negative comment, it takes 5 to build it back up to keep your emotional tank at level. And it makes sense. You think about it. You've had a really phenomenal day, and you're going along, and then someone says something really nasty to you. That's the one thing you remember. You don't remember the rest of your day. The negatives stand out. So you have to work on making sure that the positives, there's at least 5. For any constructive criticism that you give an athlete, you need to make sure that you have 5 positives to go with it. Okay, positive charting, and again, these are some of the resources that are in your handout. This is just an example about how to do it. And again, this takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, but it is worth your time and effort. Keep your feet moving, and then you write down what it is that you observed either during a practice or during a game so that they have something tangible about how you're paying attention to their effort. You're paying attention to what they're doing, and they feel valued because of your willingness to take the time to see what that one kid is doing. Okay, yeah, crazy kids. Loved them. But building from the locker room, it is a special space. It needs to be safe, fun, and positive. And if you can create that space as part of a place that their team building and bonding can happen, really magical things can happen in there. Allow time for team building, and I put bonding in there. Okay, this is the brilliance of my oldest son. I was talking to him and I said, all right, so team building, and he goes, yeah, the coaches kind of do the team building stuff. We players, we do the team bonding stuff. I was like, that's brilliant. He's right, because it's the players that come together, and it's you giving them a space and time to do that bond can happen. The building is really adult controlled. The bonding is what happens with the kids themselves. I don't know if you can see that picture very well. Isn't that unbelievable? I had to just use it because I think there's a bicyclist under there. I don't know. At any rate, I know that it's hard to do this, and I had my daughter's coach this year had 4 kids playing hockey, 3 of whom he coached, and he would come into my daughter's practice with a bag from another practice, a kid holding onto his leg, and I can only imagine telling him, okay, you need to emotionally build these girls. Can you please just take, because that's a lot to handle. He had enough on his plate as it is. And I know a lot of coaches do, and people take on a lot when they're volunteering to coach, and they're overwhelmed by this. So I have a suggestion, and it kind of goes in line with what Kristen was talking about yesterday, bringing the entire parent contingent into the fold. And this needs to be done gracefully. It has to be done well. You have to pick and choose, maybe have people apply for it. But especially for girls, if you have a team of moms or a mom who's interested in this emotional side of what it is to be part of a team, bring them in. Let them be part of this. You have to have a female in the locker room anyway. And I know for my daughter's teams and the game teams that they play, all male benches right now. I know that everyone's working to try to get more women into coaching and get them on the bench, and I think that's phenomenal. Until that happens, they still need to have some women that are part of their experience with hockey. And so being careful about which moms you choose. I definitely know that there are the over-top moms. I've seen them. But finding someone who is willing to be that emotional coach for these girls, because there is enough, and especially if a guy doesn't want to take this on, just find a woman to do it for you.
I think it's important that when you do bring a woman into the fold, that she doesn't just look like a helper. Like I think you can do and have the opposite effect on taking power away from your woman helper when she's just a helper.
I agree with you, and so I think calling her a coach. I think that's probably the key part. That that there is this support from the coaches that say, no, she's not just, she's going to be this team builder, and she's going to work on this part of your relationships with, and give her that credit, because you're absolutely right.
Well, it's kind of the same thing your son said. Well, you don't skate.
Right.
You know, that's the
true.
mentality you don't want to have. So I think it's important as you bring women into the fold.
Yep, you're exactly right. They've got to be given the creed. They have to have the credentials coming from the top. It has to be a coach that says, I'm bringing her in because I know that you guys need this, and she's going to be phenomenal for you, and I believe in what she's going to do. And the girls need to hear that from the head coach, and that's the way that it's going to, the only way that it's going to work. Completely agree. Okay, so yeah, this day we ended up doing limbo, and it's an option. We did dance parties in the locker room. We did karaoke. We had ball toss challenges. I gave you a bunch of ideas in your packet, and there's some. Oh, I mean, these exercises don't take very long, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. You can pick a ton of them. They love it. They go nuts over this stuff. And the limbo was hysterical. And you've got the stick already there. I mean, think about the equipment you have, people. You can make all sorts of things. There's one that's a really good one. You set up an obstacle course with all their gear. You throw it on the floor. You do one team on one side, and they have to walk the other team through by just verbal command when their eyes are closed. You can use all that equipment as an obstacle course. You have so much at your disposal. Use it. Be creative. Make a plan at the beginning of the season. If you want to put team building into your schedule, you've got to put it in at the beginning, because I know how seasons get. If you think, oh yeah, well we'll touch it on it when we get to like the middle of the season or whatever, you lose energy. Let's be perfectly honest. We all have great intentions at the beginning of the year. When you set out your schedule for practices, schedule in team building. Put it on the schedule. Have the kids come 20 minutes early on those days so that you can have a little bit more time in the locker room to do this. But make sure that it's important enough to you that you put it into the schedule. Do more building at the beginning. These kids are starting to get to know each other at the beginning of the season, and so you want them to have a chance to get to know each other really well. You're going to get the most out of them when you do. And then maintain. Try to keep that energy going as best you can through the season. Being proactive is much better than being reactive. Team building often happens because something's broken down. Okay, let's team build before that so that we don't have to deal with the breakdowns. Because this is so important to the chemistry of a team, you need to do it from the very beginning. All right, so here, like I said, you guys have these resources in your notebook. There's a whole bunch of them that you can do, and the hockey name sticks, you guys have them now. There is another use for them besides my mini hockey desire. If you have a hockey stick that has the name Haley, you gotta look, some of them have more on. Haley is my goalie. Kiana is the other one you gotta look for, Kiana. And then Nate wanted to be part of it too, so we put a Natalie on there. So look at your sticks. If you have Natalie, Kiana, or Haley, I have a positive coaching book for you. So, no one? Okay, see, there we go. You have Haley, okay, so you get the double goal coaching book. You're welcome. Kiana, what's that? Some of them are teammates, some of them are classmates, some of them are names we saw on the TV. You get the positive sports parenting. And then we had Natalie. She's up here. Oh, nobody is sitting there. Well, that's Nate. That's appropriate. Nate's the one that's up here. So elevating your game is the one you get. So that one's for the athletes. Okay, so this sheet I want to tell you about. We had one of our oldest players on my daughter's team, 6th grade, potential for queen bee material if given the right environment. She wasn't, because she had some good support from her parents, and the coaches really brought her into the fold as far as giving assists, but she was our high scorer. And I thought, okay, so how would this work with girls her age? I was just kind of curious, and I told her, she goes to my kid's school, and I do this kind of games all the time. And so I said to her, I said, all right, so if you're going to do this kind of games with your teammates in the locker room, do you know of any? And she wrote them down and brought them to me. She's in 6th grade. She's not quite too old for it yet. And I think they're definitely next 7th grade, 8th grade, this becomes a little bit too, you have to be careful about the games that you choose so they're not cheesy, overdone, whatever. They still like doing them, but you've got to give them the right kind of games for their age group. So look at the resources, try to see, they'll give you an idea of what age appropriate sort of games there are. So these are still good up through 6th grade at least. That was the sheet you got me. Okay, the player inventory sheet, also I gave you kind of a template, and that it is just an example, an idea. You don't have to use those questions, but I think it's a good way to get to know the kids on your team. You ask them all sorts of random questions about what superhero would you be if you were a superhero, if you had a magic power, what would it be? And then you can use these questions through the year for some sort of game. You walk into the locker room and be like, okay, I need you to tell me who it was that wanted to be a lizard. And if they guess it right, then you give them, a couple M&Ms or a prize, whatever your prize is. And it becomes important to them to want to know each other. When I was coaching in college, I would have bus tests. And so I would give the girls, when we'd get on the bus, and I would give them a test. They could pair up with each other, and I'd have questions about things that we talked about for our team strategies. But always at the end, I'd have questions that they were supposed to answer from their player inventories that they'd done at the beginning of the year. And it was hilarious because they knew their own answers and they were never going to share them with anybody else around them, and this became really competitive for them to do this questionnaire about each other because they want to know each other, they want to be connected. It's a huge, important part of their athletic experience. Okay, win to team build. This is a picture of one of our trips to Duluth, and the girls had a manicure party in my room. It smelled like you could not imagine, but it was not really even scheduled. The girls had talked about wanting to have a salon, so they all brought their fingernail polish. And it was not mandatory. We left it open. The girls were going in and out of the room the whole time. It was very relaxed, and it was kind of spontaneous. So spontaneity is good for team building too. But when you go on road trips or you're on the road, those are great times to do some team building exercises with your kids. Just make it part of the team culture that they do it all the time. And I put this in here. This is kind of my own little stump. I'm going to stand on it for a second. It drives me crazy when there's this routine of relaxation before practices, and then you get to a game and it's like, all right, now we're going to go, let's go, we're going to go get it. And it's this major change in personality of the coaches from practice to games. Whatever your routine is in practice, keep it for the games. And that's the only stump thing I'm going to say today, but I think it's hugely important for girls. They don't like that inconsistency. They want to feel that. It was nice to hear that Katie Stone has this equilibrium. That's effective. So staying kind of staying, they know what to expect from you every time. They're changing all over the place. They need somebody in there to be stable. All right, how do you know if you've achieved your goals as a coach? Championships, tournament wins, a record above 500. It'd all be nice, right? Okay, and I've decided I'm going to call this photo the Where's Waldo? Because we've seen it already now in all the presentations. That's pretty, because it's such a great photo. And it works for Waldo. I was just kind of excited about that. But no, that's not how you determine whether you've done a good job as a coach. You know you've succeeded as a coach if the lowest level player on your team has gotten better. Because if that player's improved, chances are everyone on your team is improved. So your focus needs to not be on that goal scorer, the one that's already doing well. It's on the entire team, and even the kid that can barely skate. And then, if the girls have forged positive relationships with one another, and they feel good about themselves or their experience, then you've succeeded. That really should be your end goal. Of course you want to win, and that Double Goal Coach book talks about the fact that winning, absolutely, why would you play sports otherwise? You want to win, that's why we do this. But when you're dealing with kids, this is probably even more important. It is about the locker room. Each girl brings in who she is, what she's experienced. They bring all that into the locker room with them. In that room, they put on their friendships, they put on their self-esteem, they put on a lot of things in those relationships that they have in that locker room. They put on that. They put on smiles if they're having a good time, or they put on a lot of frustration if they're not. And if they carry all of that with them, that's what comes out of the locker room. What they build in there, what bonds happen in there, that's what then comes out and is supposed to perform for you. So, that's what I have for you. What questions might you have for me that I can help answer on?